Some bike reviews I go into blind, and some I go into with a bit of bias. Now, as the existing BMC Teammachine SLR01 is one of my favorite bikes on the planet, it has been ridden to victories at everything from the Tour de France under Cadel Evans to the Olympic road race recently with Greg Van Avermaet. My test of the new SLR01 disc certainly fell into the latter category. Now, the bike's got great low race geometry, sharp front handling, very rigid lower chassis for acceleration, yet it still has the type of engineering comfort where you get on it for the first time and you think, did I forget to pump my tires? BMC hosted a few journalists to test out the new Teammachine SLR01 disc in the French Alps, and Cadel came along. He's now an ambassador and an advisor to BMC. Aside from the obvious marketing benefit of associating the splendor of the place with their new product, the French Alps did make for a spectacular testing ground for the new bike. I had a lot of fun following Cadel down some of the descents, including that of the Col du Mollard. We'd let gravity bring us up to 35 or 40 miles an hour, then scrub off a bunch of speed down to 15 or 20 to rail the corner, then jump back out, rinse and repeat. The bike's race geometry shone in these tight corners, and especially in high-speed link turns when you're changing direction quickly. Just the slightest input from the hips was all it took to get the bike to go exactly where you want. Now, some riders don't like race geometry. That's fine. They may feel it's too twitchy or too nervous. On the mountain bike, for instance, where I'm less of a competent rider as I am on the road, I prefer a little bit more of a slack front end. But on road bikes, however, I love the feel of just being able to flick the bike back and forth. Okay, some quick numbers. The frame set is a claimed 815 grams in a size 54, which is pretty light for a disc bike. BMC claims that they have boosted the bottom bracket stiffness and increased that vertical compliance. That latter is mostly due to moving the seat clamp further down into the frame and effectively lengthening the seat post, which is where, truth be told, a lot of the compliance comes from in any bike frame. The fork is 18 grams heavier than the rim brake fork, which is a relatively small increase. Usually going from rim to disc adds about 40 or 50 grams. It also came with a bit of added stiffness. Some riders who rode the disc bike and then the new rim bike back to back felt like the rim bike was a little bit more compliant on the front end. I didn't get a chance to do so, so I can't speak to that. I can tell you that the bike still feels very much like the original in terms of a relatively plush feel front and rear. Now, when companies add disc brakes to existing bikes, especially race bikes, they have to lengthen the chainstays a little bit to account for the extra width at the hub and the resulting chainline difference. So here the bike went up by 8 mils, so it's a total of 410 millimeter chainstay. Interestingly, BMC chose to make the rim brake bike have the exact same dimensions. The idea being that if and when BMC World Tour riders start racing on the disc bikes, when they swap back and forth between disc and rim, the bikes will feel identical. Here is another set of numbers that I love. 52, 36, and 1130. I appreciated this quite a bit in lugging my carcass up the long steep climbs. The Croix de Fer, I think we were climbing for an hour and a half, something like this. And I got to know the 3630 quite well on some of the steeper pitches. But then, unlike a compact bike, once you tip over the top and the fun begins on the descent, you still got plenty of gear to push coming down with the 5211. My one complaint with the new dura-ace group was the occasional ting of the rotors that you would hear after extended braking periods. So while the braking sound itself was fairly quiet, hard braking would maybe rise to a bit of a low hum, which is perfectly fine. When you'd let off the brakes, sometimes the pads wouldn't retract all the way, so you just get that little ding, 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 ding. Which, if I had paid full pop for this bike, which is, I believe, north of 11,000 euros, I would be a little annoyed at that. Now, in terms of the general braking, it is awesome. I'm not going to argue here about whether rim brakes are all you need or hydraulics are better. That's been done ad nauseum. But I will tell you that the hydraulic setup on the new 9170 works as advertised. All the power and modulation you need with a single finger. So from the endurance road machine, BMC brought over its ICS Cockpit, which is a nice blend of clean aesthetics that are still relatively straightforward to work on. The hydraulic hoses and DI2 wires run through the 3T Ergonova bar, underneath the stem with a little cup that keeps them hidden, and down into the frame. The spacers are nice in that they're interlocking, so you can still adjust your stem height without having to undo the hydraulics and DI2 and cause yourself a small amount of brain damage. So it's, in some ways, it's the best of both worlds. Nice, clean, integrated look, but something you can still adjust without too much trouble. The only thing I would change, and I did change for our test ride, was the saddle. The stock Physique Antares and I are not friends, so I popped on a Specialized Power and the bike felt like home. Okay, so it felt maybe more like a elite luxury vacation home than my actual home. But point is, this bike with a saddle that's comfy is about as close to two-wheeled perfection as I found.